So A and B are going to be review of what we've done before, but we're also going to look at what happens with D with the sinusoidal axis. Okay? Moving something up or down, a vertical shift, that's going to change your center line. And then everything else will follow from there. So describe how the graph of each relates to its original graph. So for A, the 3 in front, what's that going to change? The amplitude. So we're going to multiply y by 3. That's transformation language. Amplitude of 3 is the language of sinusoidal graphs. Sine of 3x, what's that going to change? That's going to change our period. So here our period will equal, instead of regular 2 pi, it's going to be 2 pi over 3. So that's the language of sinusoidal stuff. If we go to transformations, that's where your x value gets multiplied by 1/3. And for C, sine x plus 3, that's going to change your center line or your sinusoidal axis. Will now be at y equals 3. It was originally at y equals 0. Transformation language, we just moved it up 3. So we're going to just graph each of these separate instead of graphing them on the same grid. The first one, the only thing that's changing is our amplitude. So our period is still going to be 2 pi and split it into 4 equal sections. But now our amplitude is going to go up to 3 and down to minus 3. It's a sine graph which starts on a center line going up. And there we have our first graph. See why it's so important to have that original graph memorized? So that you can quickly change it. Part B, what's changing is the period. Changing the period is the one that takes the most thought. If the period is now 2 pi over 3, you would label that at the far end. Half of that would be 2 pi over 6 or pi over 3. So cutting it in half is like multiplying by 1/2, which just changed the denominator by timesing it by 2. Or you can think if 2 pi over 3 is the whole thing, half of 2 pi over 3 would be pi over 3.
What is this for 0, between 0 and 2 pi?
Yeah.
You still include the arrow in there?
Yeah, so we're going to, this one wants us to graph between 0 and 2 pi. So we need to have the arrows at the end, because technically if you just did it up to, in the green graph here, and left the dots there, and left it like that, that would be fine. It would be full marks. But it's not bad to draw it beyond.
So all it's saying is that you only have to graph.
You only have to graph for sure between 0 and 2 pi. They're not going to mark it wrong on the final exam if you graph more. If you wanted to be really technical, you would stop there and just graph it from 0 to 2 pi. That would be perfectly technical. Okay, but they're not going to. Anytime you do more than they ask for, they're not going to get it wrong. So this next one, I'm actually going to run out of room, because if I've got 2 pi over 3, my 2 pi would run into statue over here. So that's not going to work. But we'll just graph it for one period, and then you could keep continuing it until you got to 2 pi. But now we've split it into two. We need to split it another time. Half of pi over 3 will be pi over 6. 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6. And you can write it as 3 pi over 6, or you could simplify it to pi over 2. The amplitude of this one is 1. And it's a sine graph, so it starts in the middle, goes to the max, down to the middle, down to the min, back to the max. Oh, sorry, back to the center line. And this would be 2 pi over 3. We would have to continue it if we wanted to show exactly between 0 and 2 pi. We would have to extend it longer. For the most part on your final exam, they won't give you a set domain. Instead, they'll say graph at least one period. And finally, for part C, and this is where if you have a red pen, at 3, I'm going to draw a dotted line that's not actually part of the graph for your sinusoidal axis or your center line. And you're going to start with that. Our period is still 2 pi, so down here on our x-axis, you're going to take that period and divide it into 4 equal sections. Our amplitude is still 1, but now that our center line has moved up, we remember that our amplitude is the distance from the center line to a maximum or from the center line to a minimum. So if our amplitude is 1, that means our maximum value, if I go up 1, will be 4, and our minimum value will be 2. And the starting point for a sine graph is still on the center line going up. Now it'll go up to its maximum, back to the center line, down to its minimum, back to its center line. And that graphs it between 0, 2 pi and beyond. You have to label the y equals 3 as your center line. And questions you can do for this one are 6 and 7.